please?
Oh, of course, yes.
Thank you.
Hello, it's Darren at Moonhare Studio again, and I'm here for the first time with the mysterious Dorothy that I've been mentioning all the way since September. Thanks for coming in, Dorothy. I know that it's now at least sort of 8 to 10 weeks after the plays, and it seems like a long time ago.
It does seem like a long time ago.
Yes,
but
can you remember
lots
it?
of great memories. I loved it.
Yeah.
I was pleased, proud of the work, and really thrilled with your work.
Oh,
in
thank
it.
you for saying that. Yeah. From my perspective, obviously, I wasn't at the college, so I wasn't seeing the rehearsals as they went along. So how was it when I was producing bits of music? Were you using them straight away, or were you just listening and thinking, well, is this going to work? Or
Well, I can tell you, when we started to get a few little tracks together, and we were running things like the first act, I would sit at the desk in the studio, playing the tracks alongside the action, so that the actors would be aware of what was that there would be some music or something going on at that point, and also just to see how it fitted. But there, we're working in a very peculiar space, very claustrophobic space.
So you weren't in the actual theatre.
We had very little time in the theatre, except towards the end of the process. Okay. So in a long black room. Where there were no wings, and the actors were just basically, hiding at the back to come on, and we had just blocks to suggest the doors. Right. But it helped give the actors, when they needed it, really, when it started to arrive, we started to have that stuff. It helped to give them a real boost, and a sense of the production value that would be round the corner when they were rehearsing in this pretty grim space.
So there's a lot of imagination they have to use at that stage then?
A lot of that imagination. Everything is black blocks. We don't have a chaise longue. We have very uncomfortable seats. And there's no space. There's no space. They've got to imagine the sort of expansiveness of everything. Everything expands in the theatre.
Now, when I came over to the college the first time to have a talk to you and run through the script and get an idea of what cues you needed, the music that you wanted, did you already have in your mind very clear ideas about what the music would be like, or were you just hoping that I'd come up with something that would be useful?
I wanted something that was going to be original, that would underpin the production and give it a nuance, a sense of doing something a little bit different with it. I definitely had this Shostakovich-y feel to it, the Rachmaninoff, and I wanted some of that sense of looking back over the time and into that part of history, I suppose.
Right, because the play's set in the early 20th century, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Just as there's big change in Russia.
And I really wanted to have that sense of the change coming and the glory days. Those beautiful musical pieces were part of that transition somehow. But of course, I didn't. It wasn't going to be Shostakovich. It was going to be a theatrical playing with some of those themes and ideas, and the strings. We talked, didn't we, about the sound of the strings, the sound of the strings, and wind instruments coming in.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a palette of instruments that I was trying to stick to, and it was those sort of woodwinds, the strings, a little bit of piano, mostly very simple orchestration, but something around those lines. Even with the gypsy dance, which was probably one of the last ones that you signed off on, which was the one that was causing me the most problems to start off with, that still had all of those instruments, like the violins, fiddles really, and the clarinets.
And I wanted that sort of Jewish palette, because again, the beginning of the 20th century, what's unfolding. And really, I think Russia starts to tip that. And there's a big Jewish history within Russia too, which I really wanted to have a sense of.
And I've played you a few clips tonight from previous episodes because you haven't seen them yet, have you?
No.
And there were certain stages there where I was panicking a little bit. The only thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is that I have heard nothing back about whether the music I produced last weekend is any good. Is it going well? I think it is. We'll see, won't we? Follow me on the next episode. Could be a disaster. How did it seem from your end?
I can understand that you might have been a bit frustrated with some of the communication and the emails and things, because you'd have a day off, you have a day to get things done, and I might be rehearsing at the end of the day, and I'd get something from you during that day.
I mean, I knew that. I knew you were really busy with it,
but I knew that you needed feedback, and I felt that it was a bit like keeping an animal in a cage and not giving it enough walks, and so it was really. I apologise for that, because I think you want that immediate feedback if you can have it. But for me, sometimes it was that coming away from the process and then having a chance to think. I found it really good just sitting down with you and beginning to hear what was going on and how you were thinking about it. That made a big difference, actually.
One of the things that intrigued me was that you speak in a very sort of visual language. Is that the way you think about things? When you're describing the music, you weren't describing, I want it to sound like such and such, as much as it's dark, things are going wrong, these people are frustrated.
Because I'm thinking of it alongside the text as well, and where I want the audience to go with the ideas and where I want the actors to go with their character work and what the play is about, really.
At one stage we went through all of the cues. You came over, in fact I think we even acted one out, the one where we had to have the music underpinning the dialogue. But in the theatre process, once we'd broken the music down into separate stems, you started to muck around with that as well. So what was your thinking there? You
Once it's out there and we're using it, it's what I can hear and where it's going. So it's pragmatic in terms of that little piano sound is just perfect at that particular point.
Right.
I mean, I think you gave us a lot of this versatility with the music, which was great to be able to be creative with. And you sort of passed it, you were very generous as well, because you sort of passed it on. But that was partly how it had to be.
Because the dances started to swap around as well, didn't they? Once you started to use the music in the theatre, you changed the dances around.
Yeah, once we got into the theatre, we changed the whole process at the beginning of Act 3, I think.
Yeah.
And I decided I wanted to start on a burst into the room, with everybody just pouring into the room and the dance coming, rather than setting it up with dialogue before that. Because I thought it would just wake everyone up after the interval, and it just was a completely different sound and feel. It was a very rich way to start that with the dress, and they were wearing new costumes as well. So I felt that I wanted that after the interval.
It's the third act, but after
the third act, and then the boys got very good with their dancing, with their Russian sort of gypsy dancing. And again, that meant that we could do a little bit more there, not so good on their form or the waltzing, that's again, the rehearsal time that we had and so on there. But I was happy with that, and some of the jokes that we put in. So I had the smallest guy with the, most voluptuous actress that I could find.
Yes.
And then so some really good visuals that were quite funny and comical at that point. And then because the dancing was so great, or some of them could do that dancing, including the aged servant who suddenly threw away his stick, walking stick, and then started leaping around. I just love that exuberance of it. It just was great, and I couldn't have seen that before that process. And it's just, sometimes it's frustrating when you come into the theatre so late in the process, because it's being used for other things.
Yeah.
And it all expands, and everybody has a bit more room to try these things out. The music, I found, once we had that music, we knew that's what we were working with. Then that was quite liberating too, because this is what we've got. This is when we brought it back, didn't we? We reprised it at the end, which I
Yes,
loved.
that's right. For the sort of, at the end of the play, after the play's finished, really.
We had this little Shakespearean clog dance, which that's something I like to do in my theatre.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It was a real pleasure doing this play anyway. Really enjoyed doing the music. If anybody else is out there, would you recommend me?
Oh, I would. You've done a brilliant job.
Shameless plug.
You've coped with a terrible communicator, but I loved it, and the kids really appreciated what you did with it.
Well, it was fascinating seeing the process, and I enjoyed coming along and seeing the play for the first time and hearing that music in the auditorium. And thank you very much for that experience, and wish you luck with the next one.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you. Lovely.